Welcome back to another installment of Childhood Trauma Stories. We're here to listen to a few more stories. You heard some last time. I still have a whole bunch more to go, so I hope that you are interested and that you just keep watching. And let me know if you have any comments of your own on what you're about to hear.
What is your childhood memory that you thought was normal but realized it was traumatic later in your life? When my mum was having a bad day, before I'd leave by myself for primary school, she would say, "If I'm not here when you get back, you know why," implying that she would kill herself because of her stressful life. I'd spend the whole day at school worrying. During fits of rage, my mum would threaten to drive off of the road, off of bridges, to kill herself. With us in the car with her. So scary to constantly worry that she would snap and actually do it. I feel for ya. My mom would do exactly that, where she would speed and swerve dramatically. Why don't I just kill all of us right now? It got to the point where I was bored of her threats and genuinely couldn't wait for the day she'd finally drive us off a cliff. I found it more annoying than scary. She had her weird ways. Yep. Clearest early memories are when my parents were constantly threatening divorce and my mum would wake me up and throw me in the car in the middle of the night. She'd make me say who I wanted to live with, and when I'd start crying because that's a tough question for a kid, she'd say that meant I didn't want her and threaten to crash until I said I loved her more than my dad. They're still together and seem pretty okay now. I will never understand how or why, but they are. My mum would do the same thing. She still does it sometimes. Saying things like, "You keep on doing this and I'll end my life. One day you'll wake up and won't find me." Most of my worries are caused by her behavior. It's not that her life is bad, she's got a loving family and everything for a happy life. She just uses it as a controlling mechanism. My dad would grab a shotgun and storm out, threatening suicide, and then be gone for hours. This would happen several times a year. I knew it wasn't exactly normal, but I didn't realize how awful it truly was until later.
Now, I want to just take a break right here to really just break things down and to really process what we just heard. If you really think about it, this is a lot of people having similar stories, talking about the hopelessness that their parents were feeling, and pretty much having the same, echoing the same sentiment across the board. And it's really important to understand that this is not just one person's story, this is many people's stories, and it's important to sort of have empathy towards these people, or sympathy, to understand that this could happen to anyone. And the fact that they have to go through this, and as a child hearing your parents going through this, and for you to think that this is not going to affect them when they're growing up, it absolutely is going to affect them when they grow up. And it's really unfortunate that they had to go through sort of these things, because when you have parents, you're expecting them to protect you and take care of you, and for you to have to worry about the safety of your own parent and to carry that with you through school, through life, it's just really unfortunate. And it's incredible that these people are telling their story and being able to explain what's going on. I think it's incredible. I think more people should know about this, and it's really a lot to take in. And I'm just glad that I'm able to read this and pretty much discuss this with you guys.
When I was in the second grade, my older sister came into the bathroom while I was taking a bath to play with my toys with me. I didn't find out until later it was because my father was having a stroke from drinking too much and was making sure I didn't finish taking a bath before the paramedics arrived. My mom leaving me at different places with different people for months at a time. Or when we would be driving, I remember there would be times where she would tell me about the school she was going to take me to and that I would live there. I remember her describing the horses they had. Lies? And how much I would love it. She never ended up taking me there, but would always talk about it, like it was some magical place. Found out from my uncle years later it was an orphanage. Only reason she didn't end up taking me is because he threatened to kill her if she did.
My big brother used to give me treats. M&Ms, brownies, cheese and bread. Only years later did I realize he was sneaking me food because we were not being fed. I am healthy and functional today because a 3-year-old stole food from me. How old were you? I don't have a specific memory of how old I was at the earliest memory, but I remember the room, back room, blanket on the window, dust shimmering in the sliver of light, and the crib and him feeding me through the slates of the crib. So I'm guessing I wasn't more than 2. That would have made him almost also 2 or possibly 3. He's 9 months older.
I'm actually stunningly okay. I got identified in elementary school and had state and school system intervention. He, unfortunately, not so great. I think I was able to attach to him, and so had okay emotional development, but he had no one to attach to and had some major issues that he self-medicated with cocaine for many years. I feel like he was a bit of a sacrificial lamb for me, and there's not much I can do about that except love him and feel guilty. The best thing now is that he has a child of his own and finds a lot of purpose in taking excellent care of her. I think that was ingrained in his soul and where he's most comfortable, but before he had her he was pretty rootless and messed up.
My older sister did this for me as well. I remember she constantly had broken bones, and we joked that she'd be in a full body cast one day. It wasn't until I was older I realized she was skipping lunch at school and bringing it home to me so I'd actually have food to eat. So her poor nutrition made her prone to broken bones.
I lived in a bad neighborhood as a recovering addict. When I had my kids I was clean for 3 years. I moved to the only place I could afford and there was lots of violence and drugs use in the building. After playing outside with my kids I would invite all the kids that wanted to come visit to have dinner and dessert at my house. The parents would stagger in throughout the evening to pick up their kids. I never associated more than needed with the other parents, but they were more than happy that I wanted to watch their asshole kids. They were never bad or inappropriate when they visited. My kids were 4 or 5 at the time and I would have kids as old at 15 just trying to find a quiet place to read or do homework. I don't live in such a bad area anymore, so I don't have kids who truly need a good meal or quality time with someone anymore, but I wish I was in a well enough off place to open a place for these kids to still go.
I just want to take a break right here just to sort of process what we just went over. So we have kids that are basically trying to be the best role model that they can because the parents can't fit that role. You have a 3-year-old that actually knows that I need to feed my baby brother because he needs food. Forget myself. You have a sister who was willing to take on all the poor nutrition and be teased for it just so that the younger brother or the younger child was able to basically have substance and actually be okay. These are pretty much golden standards for older brothers and sisters that are just taking care of the younger siblings because they know that they are the ones in charge. They basically have to take the place of a parent. And it's really crazy how a child can do a better job than a parent can, and a parent could actually act more like a child than an actual child, a 3-year-old, for comparison's sake. And this last one is also really interesting because we have an addict. Again, a lot of people like to say bad things about people who are addicts, but when they get cleaned up and when they get their stuff together, they are actually some of the most kind and helpful people in the world. And the fact that this person who just was recovering, trying to get themselves back on their feet, was taking care of other people's kids because they knew that that's what they would have wanted if they were in their position. It's just really crazy that these people exist, because in a bad neighborhood where people feel that there's nothing good there, there's lawlessness, there's these little rays and sunshines of hope that are taking care of people and putting, basically taking the role of the actual parents. And this kind of goes into a lot of parents not being ready for children, and sort of this situation where, oh, should there be classes to find out if a parent is actually ready to be a parent? Because you have license tests for everything. You have a license test to drive a car. You have tests so that you can go to school, but no one has a test to see if that they can basically control every output of another person's life, especially someone who's young, who's going to hopefully be a boon to society. And it's just really interesting to see that these are some good cases for, hey, maybe we should be getting education to parents and helping them figure out their stuff, get them therapy or get them education on how to raise children. And then just kind of just helping them and helping these kids, because it's crazy that we have to have other people whose job it's not to take care of the kid filling in that role. And it's just really amazing that all this is even happening in the first place. So that's all we have for this episode. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Cheers.